Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. Penn State beats Boise State 31-14 in the Fiesta Bowl. And just now, breaking news, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will be Penn State's opponent in the Capital One Orange Bowl on January 9th. We're going to talk about Penn State's win over Boise State. We're going to answer a load of fan questions. Probably going to get some more in the chat just based off of what we've already kind of seen. And we'll preview a little bit into Notre Dame as well. Get our first couple thoughts there as well. Welcome into the show. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching or listening on podcast platforms, please make sure to subscribe there as well. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How you doing today, Sean?
Had a fiesta on New Year's Eve. Cory, how about you?
I had like back-to-back fiestas. We had a really good New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And then followed that up with a very nice New Year's Eve as well. And then just happened to be able to watch a pretty fun football game at the same time on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I didn't have too much to drink. I was over the grandparents' house, so can't get too crazy there. But I did have a couple beers. I think my plan was to only have one, and then Abdul Carter got hurt. I think I had one or two more. So,
see, I must have had enough where I hadn't really thought about. Like, I knew he was injured, but I didn't know until probably a little bit later than you. I wasn't checking my phone as often. Welcome in JW on YouTube. He says, lock the fuck in. Daniel on X says, what do we think, gents? I know Sean is going to dunk on Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame beating Georgia. What was the final? 23-10, I think the final.
23-10, yes.
And then Ryan and Elise say, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you guys as well. Sean, before we get into Notre Dame, I understand people are excited about the Orange Bowl. I haven't spoken to you yet about this, but I am going to be going down to Miami for the Orange Bowl. And so we will need to probably do our preview show on January 14th, or I'm sorry, January 7th, Tuesday, January 7th. The 14th wouldn't do us very good. So we'll have a preview to really break down the game next week. But first, let's talk about Penn State, Boise State. In a lot of senses, it's kind of what we thought the game was going to go. Sean, you had Penn State 41, Boise State 20. I had them 38-10. Ends up being 31-14, so kind of almost split the difference there. But really, it kind of went the way we thought it would. Boise State would do a couple nice things, but Penn State just too much firepower and too much depth to really be in too much danger here. Even Boise State's second touchdown kind of felt like a fluke, one-time thing, not really a sustainability kind of thing. And Penn State really got the running game going and were able to lean on both Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen in the second half to pull away. And that's kind of how we expected it to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was too much of a surprise. Of course, I do think this game probably goes different if not for the fumble from Penn State when we were up 14-0. The game is probably a little more out of reach, but Boise's a good team. I know Mount West and everything, but they are a good team. It's hard to win. I think they ended up winning 12 games if you include their conference championship game, and they're going to battle back, and they did. So you have to give them credit for that as well. It was far from perfect game, but I don't think I never even had a thought that, oh, we're going to lose. Like, that thought never really even came close to my mind. So I feel like even though Penn State, it was far from their A game, straight out got outplayed in the second quarter. I mean, to still win a game against a top 10 team by 17 points, I think you have to be happy about that.
Yeah, and to do it again without one of their best players, if not their best player in defensive end, Abdul Carter, was even more impressive. I mean, let's just maybe not bury the lead here too much. Able to slow down and really corral Ashton Genty for pretty much the entire game. He did get over 100 yards, but it took into the last couple minutes of the game where it was very obvious they were trying to get him the record. Hopefully, he would break one because they weren't trying to win the game at the end. They were literally just trying to get him more carries to potentially get the record. He finished with 30 carries for 104 yards. That it is short of the record. He did fall short of the record. And Penn State players afterwards, like straight up acknowledging that was something that motivated them. Devon J. Thomas said something about it. Jalen Reed said they were aware of it. Javon J. Thomas, I think, tweeted afterwards to Barry Sanders and said, your record's safe or something like that. So they were very much aware of it, Sean. And although there were a couple moments at 3rd and 21 where he broke loose, and then one other play where he broke a couple tackles, for the most part, Ashton Genty was held, to 3.5 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns, and 2 fumbles, in which he had 2 in the rest part of this season. I would say that was very much being corralled.
For sure. I think it was the most impressive thing this team has done all year is to be able to hold him to less than 4 yards carry. And yeah, his biggest run came on a play where it's 3rd and 15. And pretty much in every 3rd and long, I kept saying to my grandpa, they're going to find a way to get the Genty the ball. And sometimes they did, but it felt like most of the time they did end up doing that, either in a swing pass or a draw. And they got us with that draw. And I think the reason was, I don't think it's that we weren't paying attention to him, but they were able to spread us out because we were loading the box most of the night. And that's really why he wasn't able to get going. I've seen a lot of lazy takes on Twitter about Genty not being very good. And I don't think, I think if you watch that game and you got that conclusion, hard disagree. He was still doing a lot of what he did during the regular season. He was breaking a lot of tackles. The one play that he picked up the first down, it was one of the most impressive runs I've seen all year. He broke 5 tackles, and they weren't like arm tackles either. We had good form and everything. We were just bouncing off him because he's so freaking strong. But the way we were able to get him was we gang tackled so well. We would have a guy bounce off, but there'd be 2 or 3 guys waiting for him. So they communicated well. Nobody played hero ball. And we just swarmed to the football the entire night. We were gap sound. We were everything you want from a run defense. A+ performance, especially when you consider you don't have Abdul Carter most of the game.
I was really impressed with how the linebackers played. I mentioned in the preview episode, we saw what Tony Rojas was able to do in pass coverage, but we knew Tony Rojas was good in pass coverage. I was excited to see what he was going to be able to do in stopping the run. And I thought Tony Rojas swarmed the football well. Kobe King obviously played a fantastic game. And Dom DeLuca made some incredible tackles as well. One notably on a passing play to Ashton Genty, and Dom DeLuca swarmed him and tackled him one-on-one for a loss. So I thought the linebackers came up for the challenge as well. We knew that he was going to get some, and just the way it is. But the linebackers, I thought we saw what they were able to do against a mobile quarterback, and Jennings. Then we were able to see what they were able to do in the run game, and they've passed both tests so far, which the linebacking core kind of being the question mark of the defense, having them kind of ace 2 tests heading into the semifinals is a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, no doubt. I thought Dom DeLuca was very, very good. Kobe King, I mean, he's the most consistent guy on the team, really. He's the one guy that from game 1 all the way to now, I think what was their 15th game, was good every week. I mean, can't ask for much more. And yeah, Tony Rojas is really growing as a player, and he's playing his best ball now, which is awesome to see. And you could just kind of see it, he putting things together. I thought he was great in pass coverage as well. The one play that he made, he had to really get up there and knock the ball down that Madsen threw. So yeah, you don't contain and bottle a guy like Genty up without great linebacker play, and that's what we saw on Saturday, or Saturday. So
Whatever
you're
day
saying
it
that
was
on Tuesday or whatever. So
One thing I just wanted to add, just their stats real quick. Kobe King, 8 tackles. Tony Rojas, 7 tackles. Dom DeLuca, 5 tackles, including that 1 TFL. So combined for 20 tackles on the day. Well, I don't know if you're ready to go to the defensive line, but if you wanted to say one more thing about the linebackers, you can.
yeah, just again, I think they're playing their best football now. And look, with Notre Dame on the horizon, they're going to need a performance like that again. And Notre Dame's offensive line is better than Boise State's offensive line. And I think that's a good way to take us to our defensive line.
Yeah, and look, someone asked in the chat, JW asked in the chat, any word on Abdul Carter's injury or availability? Abdul Carter did tweet him him in a back to tank, trying to get healthy. I don't think that was a realistic photo, but
It was Darth Vader, but yes.
But the point being, I'm assuming that he's getting healthy, and I don't feel like you tweet something like that if you're not going to probably be able to give it a go. So full speculation, you're going to see Abdul Carter on a week from today.
Yeah.
So I expect Abdul Carter to go. I don't know if he's going to be 100%, but I think you can take an 80% Abdul Carter over most people in the country. And I think he is 100% going to give it a go.
And he also tweeted during the Notre Dame game, Riley Leonard was on the TV. I think it was on his Instagram. Riley Leonard's on the TV, and he's in a pool or a hot tub or something. And it was just that picture of Riley Leonard. So he's just
I didn't see that
there.
one.
Yo, Abdul is locked in, which is awesome.
That's good to see. I was curious because I think James Franklin had his radio show during the game tonight.
Oh, did he have that this week? I didn't know.
Yeah, I think I got something pop on my phone saying the coach's show. Now, you know what? Now that I think about it, maybe he wasn't there. Maybe it was a different coach.
Could be, yeah, because I think they do that more often than people realize.
Yeah, I know they do it for basketball, but
yeah, Mike Rowe. I mean, Mike Rowe's coaching right now, but I don't know if they have Kale on or whatever.
Right. Defensive line though. So I don't know why or what Deni Dennis Sutton needs to do, but in my opinion, Deni Dennis Sutton is getting very, very underrated right now. He finished with 6 tackles, 2.5 TFLs. He had 1 on the second drive. He had 1 that was technically not TFL, but stopped Genty on the first drive. He set the tone from the get-go. I liked how they were kind of doing kind of what I had suggested as far as leaving him on the strong side of the field. They had him and Carter flipping a couple times. They also had Carter playing some linebacker at times. But Deni Dennis Sutton is so physical in the running game. He's a good pass rusher too, but he is the definition of a run stopper as a defensive end. I don't know there's a better defensive end against the run in the country. And he continues to show out there. And then a big shout out to Amin Vanover. I mean, this guy played a lot on against Boise State. 2 TFLs for him. He had a filthy spin move that I think Landon Tangwall pointed out. Those 2 guys just played phenomenal on the outside. A couple times, Vanover came inside as well. We've always been in the Vanover fan club for a while, and it's really nice to see him have an opportunity and take full advantage of that opportunity. So I just wanted to highlight those 2 guys. But, I mean, the whole defense played really well. The defensive tackles also played extremely well. And looking ahead a little bit to Notre Dame, the defensive line is going to have a repeat performance because the Notre Dame offense, although different, is still going to be very run focused. And the defensive tackles especially are going to have to become ready to play because the Georgia defensive tackles wore down as that game went on against Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame's a lot like Michigan. Do a lot of the same things. Better quarterback, but yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Got to bring that same energy from this week to next week. And really, I think there's a lot of things that we could learn from our game against Boise because a lot of what Notre Dame does, they just have better players. It's just a better version of Boise State. But yeah, I mean, Zane Durant, I know he only had a tackle. I thought he played really well. Thought he was disruptive. Devontae Thomas, again, another Mr. Consistency guy with
Absolutely.
Kobe Kane, just plays well every single week. Izar played a good game. And they're so thin at tackle now. Like that they play so many snaps, and these are big dudes. So the conditioning, I mean, shout out to Chuck Losey for having these guys in shape, because you didn't see them wear down at all. And we got a heavy dose of Ashton Genty. They never really went away from him. They let Madsen cook a little bit. You kind of saw what happened when you let Madsen cook too much. And then yeah, and and then yeah, like the edge guys, Abdul Carter, when he played, they could not block him at all. No knock on Boise State. Barely nobody has been able to block him, but I think he beat his guy every single time. I mean, he was just so dominant. And, I tweeted during the game that the pass rush died down. Looking back, I don't even think it really did that much. It's just Abdul was so dominant, and we just didn't have that then. But, I mean, Vanover still played really, really well. So he still had a really good performance from Vanover. Was really, really filled in nicely for Abdul Carter. And then denied Dennis Sutton, again, just consistently really good against the run.
And
was
angry.
Good. Yeah, and angry. And I think a little too angry on one play. But I don't like 15-yard penalties as a general rule, and he had two of them. But he played well. I mean, he played really freaking good. So
I'm glad you brought up the penalties, because I think that's a good sidebar conversation real quick. That is still a concern for Penn State. I don't quote me on. Let me see if I can find the number. I want to say it was close to the 90s as far as yards due to penalties. Don't know if I can easily find that, but it was way too many. Oh yeah, here we go. 98 yards for Penn State. Now, thankfully, Boise State also had 90 themselves. And now I think maybe 30 of them came towards the end in some maybe garbage time, but still 98 yards is just too much. If you looked at that Georgia Notre Dame game, which I'm glad now we waited so I can kind of always tease this, Georgia was way too much laundry on the field to beat Notre Dame today. Way too many mistakes, whether it was false starts, offsides, having your backup walk-on corner run into the official, like just too many penalties for Georgia. And that's something that Penn State hasn't done as well this year as previous James Franklin teams. They've calmed down on the offsides penalties, thankfully, but that is something that they're going to definitely need to clean up a little bit. And those, that interception that they had, that denied Dennis Sutton had that penalty on, you want those return yards. That's a big difference when you're playing a Notre Dame defense.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I know part of the argument for, I'm not saying anybody necessarily loved the denied Dennis Sutton penalty, but they're like, well, you're setting tone. Well, we already set the tone. Like we're shutting him down. If that was early in the game, if that was like first quarter, we get an early interception. I'm not saying I'd love it still, but I would get it. Like what tone do we need to set? The tone was already set because he couldn't do anything.
I guess so. And you're right. You're definitely right. But part of me still loves it.
And I mean, I get it, but and the yardage, yeah. I mean, it literally costs you because Zaki took it back to like the 45-yard line, and then we're starting back at the 25-yard line, and that's or 30-yard line. That's a big difference. And then we end up was that, I think that was the same drive that Andy Kotelnicki, I would hope he would want to have back when we threw the ball on 3rd and 1. And we'll get into him in a moment. But yeah, I think penalties in general, you're going to have to play as clean a game as you can in these next two, because Notre Dame, unless they're playing Northern Illinois, they're not going to beat themselves. And I don't know if you guys watched the Rose Bowl or not, but I think Ohio State realized they're really good, and they could be pretty scary looking. So we cannot beat ourselves in these next 2 games.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to mention at least is that the offense seems at least be starting a little bit faster. Really, the second half of the season. Now, it hasn't been like perfect. Like, they technically started slow against SMU. They got some help by the defense scoring touchdowns. But in general, it just seems like this team is starting faster. And I think that's something that typically wasn't the case for Penn State teams. And so getting up to a 14-point lead, and we saw that a lot with a lot of the teams that didn't have the buys. A lot of them started pretty quickly. I guess Notre Dame maybe started the least quick, but Texas got up to an early lead. Ohio State got up to an early lead. Penn State got up to an early lead. Say that what you will about having a bye, but I think against Notre Dame especially, that's going to be so crucial, because if Notre Dame's able to lean on this run game similar to what Boise State would prefer to do, it's going to be a problem. And so you're not necessarily going to get Notre Dame to stop running the ball right away, just getting up 14-0, because even Boise State didn't do that. But maybe that means they throw the ball just a couple more times instead of running it a couple more times. Because as a play caller, it's just human nature to look and see that you're down 14-0. And as a quarterback, which Riley Leonard is a fantastic mobile quarterback, I do think there's opportunities to take advantage of when he's sometimes erratic with the football, when he has to pass. But he won't pass if he doesn't have to. And so getting an early lead, I think, is be crucial. And it was nice to see them do that even against a team where maybe other teams would sleepwalk going into it.
Getting up to, I kind of compared them a little bit, no disrespect at all either, to kind of like playing a team like Army or Navy, in that if you get up on Army or Navy, you're probably good. If you get down on them, well, then they could just triple option you to death. And Boise is like a better version of that because they have such a good running back. And they never, I thought a big play in the game was, and a big moment for the defense, was their kicker having the worst kick I've ever seen in my life. I do think if they're able to get points there.
I thought it was blocked for sure.
I thought it was too. I was like, oh, we must have got a hand on it. I was like, oh, no, nobody did. Just did. It was kind of like when you miss a golf shot and it goes sideways completely.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even go straight and sideways. It just goes way to the side.
Like, you don't know how you did it sideways.
Yes. Yeah, like if you have a friend over there, he's getting hit. It kind of looked like that.
Can we just also mention for a second how and why the hell did Boise State not go for it on that 4th and 2 and decided to kick that field goal?
I don't know.
Like, are you not trying to win a football game? Like, there is not what happened to the, 2007 Boise State Fiesta Bowl team? Like, you just have to go for that. Like, you have nothing to lose. Ashton Genty's fresh at that point. How are you not going for that and giving your guy a chance to pick up 2 yards? It's just crazy to me that early on to be that conservative. I honestly thought the game was over as soon as he missed it. Like, you lose all momentum that you had, and we know Penn State's defense always kind of gives up points on that first drive. That was your best opportunity, and you kind of let it get away from you. So I just wanted to say that was just crazy that they did not go for that 4th and 2.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of our run for that was the very beginning of our run, because then we go down, score a touchdown, stop them again, score another touchdown. Right. And then you're down 2 scores to a team that you're at a huge talent disadvantage against.
And they end up scoring 14 points the rest of the game.
Yeah. I don't know why you put yourself in that situation, but I'm kind of happy they did.
Shout out to Devin. Happy New Year's. Appreciate that. Thank you. Before we stop talking about the defense, how about, first of all, 2 things. I want to give a shout out to Tom Allen. I feel like I was tough on Tom Allen at times this year. Shut down Ashton Genty. He did some different things with Abdul Carter early. Then he lost Abdul Carter, and they didn't falter. So I wanted to give him a lot of credit. Good game plan. They really did swarm Ashton Genty all game, but they also limited any other big plays from anybody else. Besides one play to Lautner, the tight end. So I was really impressed there. And then how about Zakee Wheatley, the turnover king? I mean,
Yep.
what a time for Zakee Wheatley to have just a fantastic game. Ends up with a little bit lucky on the Kobe King forced fumble where it just happens to be in the right place at the right time. But I will say this again, and we talked about Zakee Wheatley last week. He is hustling to, you know what? I'm gonna record this. We're gonna make Zakee Wheatley's dad happy. How about Zakee Wheatley and his hustle? Because we talked about this during the SMU game where he continued to run towards the SMU tight end despite being wide open. The ball wasn't thrown very well, and he's able to break it up because he hustled over there. Well, he happens to be in the right spot at the right time when Kobe King forces the fumble on Ashton Genty because he was hustling over there to help with the tackle because he wasn't sure what was going to happen when Kobe King was trying to tackle Genty. And the ball squeezes out, and he happens to catch it before he goes out of bounds. So just the hustle. Again, I said this for 2 weeks in a row. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And twice, Wheatley has been in the right spot at the right time to make a big play for Penn State early in the game. Now, the interception later was just him being fantastic, and he deserves credit for it. But I'm very impressed with him continuing to hustle, continue to just really do all the little things right. And I want to commend him for that. I don't know if anyone's playing better football right now than Zakee Wheatley.
Yeah, yeah. I think Landon Tangwall actually made a good point in his podcast or his recent video about Zakee Wheatley, and they're buddies from Maryland, so I'm sure they've known each other for a long, long time. He's a good example of staying the course, right? Coming into the year, he was going to be the third safety, and he was going to play a lot because we ran a 4-2-5, but the main guys were gonna be KJ Winston and Jalen Reed. So KJ gets hurt, and we unfortunately lose him for the year. And Zakee Wheatley walks into that role, and I mean he's really thrived. He's really done a great job in this defense. He's always had a knack for getting the ball, but it's everything else that he's gotten better at. Because 2 years ago, he could go pick balls off. He could go force fumbles. That was never an issue. It's just consistently doing it over and over and over again,
Right.
doing the right thing, not getting lost in coverage, making tackles. He's doing it all now. So it's a really fun thing to see. And I'm so happy we have him back next year, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I wanted to give him some love as well.
And won Fiesta Bowl MVP.
I didn't know he got MVP. So
yeah,
I'm glad
defensive
you mentioned
MVP.
that.
Yep.
Very nice. Yeah, well deserved. You have 2 turnovers. Penn State, by the way, ends up with 4 turnovers. I had mentioned on the previous episode, turnovers are contagious sometimes. And Penn State didn't have a bunch of them this season, but now have 7 in the last 2 games. I mean, you're making top 10 teams turn the ball over 7 times. That's a very good sign. Boise State really took care of the football all season long. And to force them into 4 mistakes, that's very impressive. To make Genty fumble twice, he only recovered 1. But that is what this defense kind of needed, in my opinion, to go from extremely very good, great to elite. And they're starting to do that now. And it couldn't come at a better time because against playoff teams, you're going to need to get another possession or 2. We just saw Notre Dame go 2-0 on turnovers against Georgia. Those change the game. And Franklin has reiterated over and over again how important the turnover battle is. And they're killing it right now. And it seems to be very contagious. We'll get to the running backs in a second, but it seems like the defense is as hot as the running backs are as far as forcing some turnovers and mistakes.
Yeah, and like you said, that's the difference, right? That's kind of the difference between, besides not having Chop Robinson there, that's the difference between this year's defense, last year's defense. Last year's defense, they forced a ton of turnovers, and you just kind of always knew, well, even if the defense wasn't playing that great, you're like, we'll get a turnover, and the turnover would almost always come. And through times this year, it didn't feel like that, and the defense was always good, but we were forcing punts and forcing long field goals that they'd miss, or it was kind of like drives would just kind of end organically. and not forcing the issue. And this defense is starting to. I was asking for more 3-and-outs in the year. We're getting more 3-and-outs, which not turnovers, but really good opportunities for field position, which is something that we wanted more. We wanted better field position because the defense would typically let them cross midfield. Then Abdul Carter would get a sack, and then they have to punt, and then we're pinned inside the 10. And then the offense has to go the length of the field. And that stuff all adds up. And that's just not happening as much right now. And look, if we're going to win these next 2 games, we're going to need some turnover. We're going to need some turnovers.
Absolutely.
It's just that's just the nature of beating these big boy teams.
So to give you an idea, Sean, Penn State had 17 takeaways before the playoffs started. They're now at 24. Quick math. 17 at the end of the season. Well, I guess that includes. Did we get any in the Big Ten championship? I didn't think about the Big Ten championship.
No.
Okay. But so 17 basically through the regular season when all the other teams stopped playing. 17 takeaways would have put them tied for 65th in the country with 17. Now they're at 24 and they're sitting as tied for 15th in the country. If you're doing quick math at home, almost a third of their takeaways at this point have come into playoff, which is just insane. Again, against playoff caliber teams, they've gotten a third of their takeaways for the season. So very impressed there. I also just want to mention Notre Dame, the best takeaway team in the country right now. They have 31 takeaways on the season. When you look at the margin, Notre Dame is third in the country. They're positive 16, which is just very incredible. Penn State's sitting there at positive 10. So both very, very good. But Notre Dame, the best in the Power Four and one of the best in the country at takeaways and also taking care of the football.
Yeah, one of the first 2 stats that Franklin points to every single press conference is turnovers and explosive plays. And if you win both of those battles, you win the game like 95% of the time or something. If you win one, and then if you split them, it's about 50-50. If you don't win either, well, you're going to lose more. You're going to lose a lot of those games. So, turning the ball, keeping this rhythm of forcing turnovers, and also the team's been pretty good at taking care of the ball. I mean, that's when the book is sort of being written now on Drew Aller. I think it's a big long book and only the first few pages have been written, but the first few pages say he takes care of the football. And so I think when you consider that, I think you have to feel pretty good with the way we've been taking care of the ball, and we've been taking the ball away. I know he had the fumble, but that happens.
Yeah, that happens. You want to talk about the offense?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think we have to start with Drew Aller. Because as fast as they started, a lot of it was because of how fast Drew Aller started. Those 2 touchdowns, all 3 of his touchdown passes were phenomenal. Those first 2, some of the best throws he's had. I mean, we told you, Big Dome Aller, Big Dome Drew. People calling him that yet? Big
I don't think
Big
so,
Dome
but
Drew?
I like it.
We're going to start it right now. Big Dome Drew is fantastic in domes. It is what it is. I don't know if it's just because there's no wind, but he has no problem just throwing some absolute rainbows in there for touchdowns. I mean, the throw to Tyler Warren was just perfect in the back corner of the end zone. The throw to Amari Evans, he dropped that thing in a bucket. I mean, it was perfect. Still, struggling from time to time with some consistency as far as doing that the entire game. But man, oh man, when he's got time to throw, he is unleashing them. And you could just tell he was confident from the get-go. And he gave his guys chances. I mean, I think he gave Tyler Warren opportunities to go make plays. He gave even ones that weren't catches, the one to Amari Evans, the one to Trey Wallace, very difficult catches, but very reasonable that they should have caught it because they were such perfect throws. So Drew Aller was wheeling and dealing early, Big Dome Drew. And just one thing, regardless of how he does throwing the ball, he has continued to be consistent with how he's able to move around the pocket and escape and make plays. Well, how many times, Sean, do we say on this show, your quarterback has to be able to pick up at least 1 or 2 first downs on the ground? Third and whatever, can he make a play or two and basically bail out your offense? 3rd and 14, Drew Aller's able to pick up a first down with his legs. I don't know if anybody would have thought he would have been able to do that last year. He's just been very consistent as far as his pocket awareness and his ability to pick up first downs on the ground. I mean, it's really been the difference for Penn State this season. And when you couple that with his ability to throw the football when he's Big Dome Drew, it's unstoppable. It really is unstoppable. And very impressed with Drew Aller. I think he is playing. You look at all the quarterbacks right now. It's hard to not give Will Howard the kind of nudge just because of the amount of points they scored against Oregon. I know he's got different receivers, but maybe call that a tie with Will Howard right now. But otherwise, like, I think Drew Aller, you could argue, is the best quarterback left in a college football playoff. Which, if you think you have the best quarterback in the playoff, you got to feel like you have a decent chance of winning the whole damn thing.
Good way to put it. Yeah, I think with Drew, his biggest issue, like you said, is just consistency. Because he just goes through some lulls sometimes that he just is not accurate. Now, do I think that was did I think that was really what happened on Tuesday? No, I think his numbers, because I know he only completed like a little above 50% of his passes. His QBR wasn't very good, but that's why numbers need context. And he had some timely drops. I know that the drop that Warren had over the middle, I didn't really think that was that great of a throw. Could have been down. That was the only one that, when I think of the drops, like that was kind of a misfit. Ball placement just wasn't good. Still think Warren should have got it. He had 2 hands on the ball, but ball placement just wasn't very good on it. And then the pass to Wallace, you got to make that catch. If you're a number 1 receiver, have to come down with that. And then the pass to Evans, that was a harder catch than even Wallace's. But still, I mean, make the catch. So you have to be able to help your quarterback out some. But yeah, I think the biggest improvement he's made has been creating from outside the pocket. And I remember at the conclusion of the Clifford Wars, which Cory is a hardened vet of the Clifford Wars, and longtime listeners are very familiar with the Clifford Wars.
We had a comment about Sean Clifford today that the Notre Dame offense reminds, who was this? One Take State. The Notre Dame offense reminds him of the 2020 Sean Clifford offense.
Oh wow! Well, then I think we could just book our flights to Atlanta then. Now, at the end of the Clifford Wars, one of the things that Cory would bring up consistently is, I don't think Drew could create outside the pocket. At the time, it was true. Because I don't know if Drew was necessarily a statue his freshman year, but he didn't move that well. And when he did move, it was very lumbering, and you could tell he was very uncomfortable and a little robotic. And that's just not what we see right now. That first touchdown was unbelievable. Like, he is working through his progressions, keeping his eyes downfield, giving Warren time to get open. And then he has to drop it into a spot. Again, not to a guy, into a spot that only his guy could get it in the back corner. And he puts it right on the money. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. So really impressive throws. The only thing is, you just got to see more consistency, but that's why he's coming back to work on that consistency.
A good point from DKW on X right now. Drew Aller, Big Dome Drew, is the only quarterback remaining in the college football playoff that was signed out of high school by the team he's currently with.
How about that?
Kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, because Ewers, one of the reasons I always respect Quinn Ewers is screwing over Ohio State. I thought that was
I
awesome.
saw there was somebody message board geniuses that was saying that they're going to bring Quinn Ewers back next year.
Oh,
So take that for what you will.
I'm sure that relationship is awesome between him and Ohio State. Yeah, that'll happen.
Another person I saw thought that they could get the Ohio State receiver, JJ. Jeremiah Smith. He is from Miami originally, and I guess this one guy from the Miami message boards is convinced they'd be able to spend $8 million to get him to come to Miami.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I'm sure he can't wait to get down there to lose in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
if you can't win with Cam Ward, or you can't even make the playoff with Cam Ward in the ACC, I don't think you're gonna get Mr. Jeremiah Smith to come. All right, let's talk about the running backs. Wow, are they fun? I mentioned the takeaways being kind of contagious and hot right now for the defense. I don't know if anybody right now is hotter than Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton. Now, I know Nick Singleton, I hate when people are like, oh, he got bailed out by a long run. Okay. Like, I don't know what you want me to say to that.
Did we all watch Saquon Barkley here?
Right. They both ran very, very well. Kaytron Allen now has eclipsed 1,000 yards on the season. They both are over 1,000 yards on a season now. And so they are the only two running backs on the same team to both go over 1,000 yards. That will probably end in the Cotton Bowl because Quinson Junkins and Travion Henderson are both at like 950. But right now they're the only two backs on the same team that are over 1,000 yards. And they're both looking really, really, really good right now. Sean, I named the show The Second Horseman. I am not, super duper religious like Riley Leonard. But the second horseman in John's revelation is kind of like the horseman of I don't want to say evil, but I'm going to use of war. And I love this other word they use, conflict. And I feel like that really sums up Kaytron Allen well. He runs looking for conflict, looking for pain and suffering. The run that was called back due to a holding, like he trucked that one dude. I don't know if that dude knew where he was, still standing. Like I thought that guy was going to poop his pants. But Kaytron Allen just like not just took over the game in a sense of like just pounding it. He was able to use his vision. He was able to get out in space. He was able to get to the second level, and then he just couldn't be brought down. And I think he really dictated that entire second half. So I want to give a shout out to Nick Singleton because he did have a nice long run there to seal it. But to me, I think Kaytron Allen deserved to have this episode named after him because he is just violent, Sean. I'm trying to think of another running back Penn State's had that is this violent. We were texting about it. Like there's been some violent runners. Like I think of like a Zags Winnack and I know some people mentioned Earl Campbell on X earlier, but I just don't know if anyone is exactly like Kaytron Allen. And then for a Boise State fullback to then mock him and to do his celebration when he scores, like if I could choose one player on Penn State's team that I don't try to piss off more, it's probably Kaytron Allen. Maybe deny Dennis Sutton. Those are probably two bad dudes on the team. I'm not pissing off either one of those guys. And they chose to piss off Kaytron Allen in a playoff game. That was probably one of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen. And Kaytron Allen just made him pay for it.
Yeah, and he even said after the game, like, yeah, he saw it and he fired him up. So he wasn't even hiding it.
You don't go for it on a 4th and 2, and then you're like, hey, let's piss off their running back that is more of a bruiser. Like in a game where Ashton Genty was supposed to maybe showcase himself, Kaytron Allen took all of the spotlight.
Steve Jones and Jack Ham, I was listening to them before the game. In the car, and Steve Jones brought up a good story about when Penn State played Herschel Walker in the '82 Sugar Bowl, and all the talk all week was all month at that point, because we had a month before the bowl game, was about Herschel Walker, and Kurt Warner ends up outplaying him in the Sugar Bowl. And a very similar thing, and that was before the game, he was mentioning that. And then sure enough, history kind of repeats itself. Ashton Jeanty, as he should, getting all this buzz. Again, I thought he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. But we have two really good running backs right here. And they both showed out. And, you know, when they were announcing the MVPs, my first reaction was surprise at Tyler Warren, because I was like, Tyler Warren. And I was like, oh, yeah, he did have 2 touchdowns. But I was like, it's obviously going to be Kane Allen, right? And then you look and you're like, oh, well, I mean, I guess the 2 touchdowns. But, man, Kane Allen was the best player on the field on offense for Penn State on Saturday. I keep saying on Saturday, on Tuesday. And I don't think
whatever day it was.
Yeah, I don't think it was particularly close. And that's no slight on Tyler, but Katron, the whole offense was built around him. And it was to the point that, and I think he ended up with 17 or 18 carries. I want him to have more. And I think a big criticism was we may have thrown the ball too much. And I think that's true, and it's not true. It's true in situations we could have ran the ball more, but overall, Drew only threw the ball 25 times. And that's not a whole heck of a lot of passes in over the course of a game. So it's true in that in situations we should have ran the ball more. We should have just ran the ball. But it's not like he was out there slinging it the whole game. Most of the play, most of the plays were handoffs to either Katron or Nick Singleton.
Just to tease the viewers a little bit more, I'm going to do that probably the entire show. Which, by the way, you just answered a fan question, so I'm going to skip that fan question for later, because someone was there like, why are we not? Someone asked, are we going to run the ball against Notre Dame? Which
no, we're just going to throw the ball 60
I did want to
times.
just tease. I wanted to tease for a second here. Yes, Notre Dame, I think, has a top 5, top 10 defense. When it comes to scoring defense, they're second. When it comes to total defense, Notre Dame is 8th. When it comes to pass defense, Notre Dame is 2nd. But Sean, do you want to take a guess on what Notre Dame's rush defense is?
Riddle me.
41st.
Oh.
So
well, you don't say.
So if you're saying there's maybe, if you're curious, Boise State is 31st.
I just had an Oregon moment where I just went. I remember looking at Oregon. I was like, we tried to run together here. We could really have a chance to put points up.
We tried to tell people before the Ohio State Oregon game that Oregon was 86 in rushing EPA, expected play, and people didn't really listen, and they kind of got cooked. If you're curious, Oregon is 38th. So Notre Dame 41st, Oregon is 38th, and just straight up rushing yards per game allowed. If you do it by average, if you're curious about that, Notre Dame is at 28th as far as yards per carry allowed. Obviously, Penn State's top 10 in that. But wanted to mention that. Where am I at here? Running backs, yes, very good. I do think there was times where they could have probably ran the ball more. But 7.9 yards per carry for Kane Allen, 7.3 yards per carry for Nick Singleton. We have 2 questions on pass protection, so I want to save that conversation for the questions. But the running game, I mean, Tyler Warren is blocking extremely well. Rucci is blocking very well. Even though Sal Wormley had the holding, I thought he blocked very well. Dawkins, I thought, blocked very well. Dinkins continues to block extremely well. They're getting, and we always talk about this, it's not just about how you block the defensive line, it's about how well you get to the second level. And for the blog, he had a great video on it, but the offensive line did a really good job of getting to that next level and getting to those linebackers and putting Boise State's secondary, their corners and safeties, in positions where they had to try to tackle Kane Allen one-on-one, which is not a fun idea for anybody.
No. Yeah, and I think that was one of the reasons, if you want to go all the way back to last season when we were having our running woes, they weren't getting to the next level enough. And that's something that you're seeing. That's a big difference that you're seeing, especially lately in the year. We're running the ball now. Again, we kind of brought this up. We ran the ball really well against, at the time, the number 1 team in the country, the number 9 team in the country, and the number 10 team in the country. And we struggled around the ball against Maryland, who is like the 70th team in the country. So again, college football is a very weird sport in that way. But again, sometimes you just put it together, and sometimes it takes a long time over the course of the season to put it together, but they have. Really want to highlight like Singleton's run itself, the one that put it away. Look at the way those linemen are moving. Wormley and Rucci. Man, Rucci's super athletic. You're seeing that 5-star potential starting to be reached.
Yeah.
Like him moving.
No one's playing better. No one's had a better 2 games in the playoffs so far than Nolan Rucci.
I know. We're going to have to find a way to get him, Donka, and Shelton on the field next year. It's kind of a good problem to have. Someone might have to move because they've all been so good.
That was actually brought up on X today. Was exactly like potentially maybe moving Donka inside, but we'll have that conversation in the spring.
Yes, that is a next year conversation, but it's gonna be a fun conversation to have because they're all playing so well. And then Shelton was the lead guy on that. So just the way they're moving, and that's Singleton's gonna get all the praise and everything for it, but we made it really easy for him. And he's so fast, he's gonna explode through that hole and go the distance every time when you give him that much room. So they have really stepped their game up. I thought they could have been better in pass protection. That blitz in the A gap kind of gave them fits at times. Now, again, watch Tangwall's breakdown of it. He'll do a much better job than me. And he kind of said it's an easy-ish fix to stop that. And that was really my only complaint with the offensive line probably in the last month was we just didn't handle that pass rush all that well from the inside. But again, I think it's something that's looks like it's something that's correctable.
Absolutely. Tyler Warren, 2 touchdowns for him. We had a feeling that nobody was really going to be able to cover them. He ended up with 6 catches for 63 yards. Couple times they just left him wide open. A couple times he was open and it wasn't a great throw. He did drop 1 or 2 as well. But he did what we expected him to do. I think that's like what you're going to expect out of Tyler Warren in the rest of these playoffs. Like I don't know if he's going to have like a 17 catch game or even maybe potentially break 100 yards. I feel like 6 catches and trying to get him involved in the red zone is where he's going to kind of shine. And it's going to take Omari Evans and Trey Wallace, who combined for 5 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. Like, you're going to need at least that production, if not more, moving forward. I mean, again, they only ended up with 13 catches on the day, and half of them were basically to Tyler Warren. Reynolds also had 2. Omari Evans, his other catch was not too shabby either. But, Sean, I mean, to your point, they didn't throw the ball that much. They threw it 25 times, and half of them probably went to Tyler Warren. So it's kind of about what you'd expect, but that's probably the least amount of production you can afford from Penn State moving forward in the rest of the playoff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the Notre Dame game projecting forward, I think it's going to be, we were actually talking a little bit about this before we went live. It's probably going to be a race to 24 points. So I don't think it's going to be a firework, I don't know, factory or show, firework factory. I don't think it's going to be that, but you're still going to have to put some points on the board, because Notre Dame probably will. So it's gonna be like that, and then Ohio State, you're certainly gonna have to score some points. But yeah, I thought Warren was good. You made a good point too about his blocking. I thought that first drive, where it became pretty obvious we were going to be able to run the ball in these guys, he was so good blocking. Like, they ran to his side almost every run, and then he caps it off with a touchdown. And really, if you want to pack up hey, if you're saying to us, if a scout's asking you, show me one drive of why I should draft Tyler Warren in the first round, just send him the tape of that drive and say, there you go, that's why you should draft Tyler Warren, because he's going to do everything for you and he's going to cap it off with a touchdown. Like that's him in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think besides Caleb Downs in Ohio State, I don't know if anyone really matches up well. I know Notre Dame has a very good pass defense as a whole, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're equipped to stop a Tyler Warren specifically. I thought, honestly, Georgia didn't use Delpit enough today because I think he's actually really good. And they didn't go to him very much, and I think that was a mismatch that they could have probably utilized a little bit more. But I think Tyler Warren is just such a problem for 99% of teams. Unfortunately, one of those teams is still in the playoff.
Yeah, that is a tough part. And we are Notre Dame right now. But Ohio State does loom. Unless Texas could pull some miracle, even though I think Notre Dame's going to beat them with the garbage can. Or Ohio State's going to beat them with the garbage can. So I think they're looming, but we just got to get by the Irish first. So it's going to be tough. Their secondary is very, very good. So I do worry about our receivers getting open. I think
very worried about the receivers.
That's going to be, Warren will be fine. I think Warren's going to make his catches and everything, but those receivers,
I'll say this, Sean.
That's tough.
If they allow Notre Dame to play as physical as they allowed Notre Dame to play at the corner position against Georgia, it could be a problem because they let them play just as much as they let Ohio State play earlier this year when Penn State played Ohio State. So that could be a very large problem if Penn State has to go up against press man. But again, the best way to get teams out of press man, besides just burning them, is to be able to run the football. When those DBs are not able to look at their defenders because they have to worry about, or their receivers because they have to worry about the running back, that allows you to get out of some of that press man, but you got to be able to run the rock effectively. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup to see how much Notre Dame decides to go to that. I would expect them to try to do it very often. One other thing I wanted to mention, Sean, with the games over now, Penn State now has the #1 red zone defense for touchdown percentage allowed. They pass Ohio State, which again, they're both extremely freaking good. Like it's crazy good how well Penn State and Ohio State have done in touchdown percentage allowed in the red zone. Penn State's sitting there now at 39.47%, and Ohio State's there at 41%. So just incredible to only allow touchdowns in the red zone 39% of the time. They got a pick. Tyrese Mills got a pick in the end zone. By the way, Zion Tracy had also a nice interception too. But Tyrese Mills, it's nice to see him get a pick. He's going to be a big part of next year. But just only allowing a touchdown less than a coin flip of the time is really incredible. Notre Dame, just again to continue to compare to Notre Dame, is 33. So they're allowing touchdowns in the red zone 55% of the time, which we talk about Penn State in the maroon zone and the red zone a lot as far as their offense is concerned, seeing a little bit more of a favorable matchup against Notre Dame than, say, in Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State's literally allowing touchdowns 14% less of the time than Notre Dame. So a little bit better there.
And Notre Dame had a few drives stall out tonight. They kicked a bunch of field goals, and
that's a good point.
One of the things that I said in our chat is Notre Dame tonight. They had one offensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, and then a bunch of field goals. So, I mean, I think the defense will be ready for that because they have been so good in the red zone. And I think if you're able, and that's been kind of the calling card all year, right? Has been bend, don't break. And this is going to be a team that I think you're going to be able to do that against.
Yeah, Notre Dame and Penn State are pretty much even in red zone touchdown percentage on offense. And I don't think Penn State's necessarily been that great. And so I would say Notre Dame necessarily haven't been that great either then. So I
And
think you're right.
and their kicker Jeter, who hit a few field goals tonight, he was nearly 50%. He was only around 50% coming into this game. So he has Yips potential.
Like potentially shank one, like Boise
Yes.
State's kicker did.
I don't know if it'll be that bad, but it could definitely be as bad as Boise's second kick that he missed.
Do you want to get us some fan questions?
Let's talk to the people.
Let's talk to the people, eh? All right. Let's see if we can do this correctly. All righty. So the first question here is from Brennan Malinovich, which I think you may have got a different X account. So welcome back. I don't think we've seen you for a little bit. His question is, Singleton was in a lot for pass protection with the blitz coming. Whiffed a couple of times, line struggled a bit at times. Do you think it was a scheme issue with more protection like do you think there'll be more issues facing either Notre Dame or Georgia? Do you think we'll see more Cooper Cousins moving forward? Sean, I don't know if you want to. I'll just say this. I think the reason for a couple more sacks really is Drew holding onto the ball a little bit more than I'd like than anything. I don't really feel like a lot of the sacks are like instantaneous. I feel like receivers are either not getting open and he's holding on to it and he's just not, the clock isn't going off fast enough. Or he's just so trying to make a play so bad and then decides it's not there and he's trying to be smart with the football. A lot of those sacks, in my opinions, are covered sacks. I do think Nick Singleton honestly has done better in pass pro this year than what he was, say, 2 years ago. But I don't expect a lot of changes. Boy, you got to understand too, Boise State was coming in the country with the most sacks in the nation. And although their front four wasn't great, they were very good at blitzing. And they did have some exotic blitzes. I saw the double A kind of cross blitzer that they got home with one time and confused us. They are a very good blitzing team. And so that was a challenge from a communication perspective that was going to be the case that Penn State was going to have to overcome. I'm not saying that Mr. Al Golden isn't going to have some things up his sleeve for Notre Dame, but Boise State also pretty good blitzing team in their own right.
Yes. That's part of how they got so many sacks was by blitzing, by confusing college kids, which turns out not the most difficult thing to do. Hence, that's why Andy Kotelnicki's so successful. But yeah, I think pass protection was iffy, but I also agree with what you said, Corey. Like a lot of people don't realize I don't know if it's exactly 50-50, but almost 50% of sacks are kind of on the quarterback because of not having that clock go off. So it's very easy to blame the offensive line for sacks. And that tends to be what media and fans tend to do. They tend to always just blame the offensive line. But sometimes it's not that simple. Sometimes the quarterback just needs to get rid of the ball and they hang on to the ball and then they take a sack and you end up losing 3 to 8 yards. So it goes both ways, I guess. But yeah, I thought Singleton could have been better. I think he has been better. I don't think this has been an ongoing problem for him in pass protection, but yeah, he's got to be better than he was on Saturday. That's for sure. Whenever we played, that's for sure.
And our scat's just going to follow with the next question because it's kind of in the same token. Seemed like Boise is getting a lot of pressure on Aller right up the middle. How do we combat that? I think teams are starting to realize that they have to keep Aller in the pocket a little bit more. I don't think he necessarily earns the respect of like a spy on every play, but I do think teams are starting to realize that they need to somewhat contain Drew Aller because of his ability to extend the play and to make guys miss even within the pocket. Again, I think Boise State's very good at blitzing, and I think they confuse the offensive line at times. But you also, can slow things down. I didn't feel like we ran a bunch of screens on Saturday. Or again, I just said Saturday. There you go. And that's the best way to do it. But also the other way is to run right at them. And people are not going to be as good at blitzing if you're running right at them. But in general, there's probably some things that they need to clean up from a communication perspective. Usually, inside blitzes, I feel like, are due to people kind of getting confused on who their man's supposed to be, and or someone showing a blitz but then not blitzing, and now you kind of accounted for somebody that you weren't prepared to account for, or vice versa. I don't think this is something I'm overly concerned with because, again, I feel like a lot of those blitzes or a lot of those sacks that came internally were because of what we just talked about a second ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't think it's as much of a scheme issue because it's not like we're looking at the 2015 Penn State offensive line where it's just not going to work. First off, you have 2 good tackles, which goes a long way. And then I don't think the interior of the offensive line, I don't think it's been a problem really all year. I mean, we played Oregon and Ohio State, who neither of them blitz nearly as much as Boise, but they held up fine against them. Now, Ohio State did blitz a lot more in the Rose Bowl than they had all year, so maybe that's another wrinkle that Jim Knowles is putting in. And oh boy, I was kind of hoping he wouldn't do that, but he has. And also, Notre Dame for the year is toward the middle of the pack in sacks. They have 33 sacks on the year, whereas Penn State has 39, and they don't have their best pass rusher. So maybe it won't be as much of a concern for us in this next game.
Yeah, and I thought Al Golden blitz. I mean, there was one thing that I did see in the stats today during the game. I thought they did mention Notre Dame has a pretty high like rush rate as far as hurry rate or getting pressure on the quarterback. I thought they said they were one of the highest at 45%. So maybe the fact that they hadn't got sacks yet, but they have gotten some pressure on the QB. But I'm also curious what Al Golden's going to do as far as, does he blitz or does he kind of just sit back and cover 2 and just see if his front 4 can get home and lock everybody up in coverage. So I'm curious how he plays that.
Gather around, kids.
Uh-oh.
Before there was Matt Rule coming to Penn State to be the savior, there was another man from Temple that was going to come and be the savior.
That's right.
And his name is Alfred Golden. And then he went to the University of Miami, and he was no longer the savior. But he is a hell of a defensive coordinator, and he has a great defense. So I'm sure he's going to have a plan for us. Maybe he'll go easy on his alma mater.
Well, remember, he was pivotal in the win over Notre Dame way back when.
Yeah, he had a touchdown, right?
So maybe he's going to, I don't know, sabotage his own team one more time.
Maybe. Win one for the Gipper.
All right, next fan question. This question here is from Devin. Are you concerned about the inconsistency of the offense? A lot of negative questions today, coming off of a Fiesta Bowl win. At times, the play calling is limiting the run game success. Sometimes it's Aller being sporadic with his ball placement. Other times, it's receivers unable to make the key catch. Can we put it all together? John, I'll let you go first.
I mean, I think we've shown that we could put it together. We put it together against Oregon. I know we lost, but we did. But yeah, are the inconsistencies worrying to me? Yeah, because the next 2 teams we play, I think Notre Dame is probably about equal talent level with Penn State. And then as far as talent goes, Ohio State and Texas have more talent pound for pound than Penn State. So yeah, I mean, it's concerning. I think the offense wasn't as bad as people are saying on Saturday. Well, we're just going to say Saturday. I don't. I think there were times that penalties really were the biggest problem for the offense. Salim Wormley forgetting how to use his hands for a whole drive. I don't know what that was about. There was a couple costly false starts that James Franklin and Drew Rowler seemed really upset about, in that I think they were messing with our cadence, or they may have been clapping on Boise's side, but they got away with it. So what are you gonna do? And then Boise had a lot of false starts too, so maybe we were doing a little bit back to them. So I think penalties were the biggest thing that got in our way. But were they everything? No. But I don't think the offense was as bad playing against Boise as some fans are making it out to be. I actually saw, and although he's a jabroni, Andrew Filipponi, or whatever his name is, put out he said, "Are you happy with that performance, Penn State fans?" And I want to say 50 to 75% of the responses were no. And like, the thing is, guys, we're not going to beat, especially in the playoffs, we're not going to beat teams 50-0 every week.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to happen. We won by 17 points. And did we look as dominant as we did against SMU? No, we didn't. But a lot of the wounds were self-inflicted too. And I don't think we'll make those same mistakes. At least I hope we don't make those same mistakes against Notre Dame here.
I agree with all that. Before we get to the next fan question, I just want to just give you guys a kind of a funny break and just mention that. Do you remember cornerback Tony Grimes, Sean?
Yes.
He originally committed to North Carolina back in 2020.
Yep.
He played there for 2 years, and then he transferred to A&M in December of 2022.
I remember trying to
He then entered the transfer portal, committed to Michigan State on January 7th, decommitted from Michigan State on January 14th of 2024, and committed to UNLV and played this last season with UNLV. In December, he entered the transfer portal again, and now he's committed to Purdue.
He is a frequent visitor.
Does our
account follow transfer portal on Twitter?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think my personal Twitter does. I'll have to follow it for us. It's like the account kind of talks like it's the transfer portal, and sometimes you'll have guys like that, and they'll be like, "We love our frequent visitors." So I think Tony Grimes definitely qualifies as a frequent visitor.
He can't stay out of.
When are you gonna graduate? I know academics don't mean as much anymore, if at all, but like, are you ever going to?
And like, at the same time, like, is Purdue that much better than UNLV?
No. Did Purdue hire their coach yet? I feel like they did, and I missed it. I saw it in passing.
Oh yeah, maybe that's why he went. They got Barry Odom from UNLV.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Still funny.
Oh, very.
But at least it makes a little bit more sense.
Yep.
All right, we'll give him a little bit of slack for that. I'm not going to answer this question about, do you think we'll attempt to run the ball next week? I feel like we kind of answered that a lot. Let's go to this next question. We got two more here. This one is from Matty Ice. Do you have concerns that Andy Kotelnicki tries too hard sometimes to be woke and run a TikTok offense too much? First of all, I want to give Matty Ice credit, because I feel like I have never heard the TikTok offense expression before, and I don't exactly know what a TikTok offense is. But I think it's hysterical. So you get credit for the TikTok offense, but I don't know what that means. So I don't know how much I can really answer that. But as far as maybe trying too hard, I think that's probably fair. I think sometimes he gets a little cute. But again, guys, you can't be excited and saying, "Oh man, AK's in the bag right now," when he does all the fun stuff, and then be mad when the fun stuff doesn't always work. I feel like it's always going to be a little bit of a double-bladed sword there, and you're going to get stabbed sometimes. But again, just to remind everybody, this offense has to be fun, because it doesn't have a ton of playmakers. They are going to be an offense that runs the ball and then is creative in the passing game. And really, a lot of the passing game is an extension of the run game by just being fun. And you kind of have to have some of that to keep the defense honest, because you can't keep the defense honest with 5-step drops very often. So to answer your question, I do have some concerns. I do wish sometimes he would, not get bored with it. I think is what Franklin always said when what's his face? I already forgot his name. Would try to start throwing the ball around. But it's different in the sense of I feel like AK is just trying to be creative to get the ball to certain people and get in their hands versus I don't think he's trying to like show how smart he is. I just think he just doesn't want to run the ball. And that's different than I need to run, difficult pass concepts to show that I have these in my offense. Instead, I feel like it's more of he's trying to hit the big play. He's trying to be explosive. And sometimes just running the ball with Katron Allen is all the offense needs at that moment.
I think we need to get the libs of TikTok Twitter account to investigate Andy Kotelnicki and the woke agenda of the Penn State offense. But yeah, I think I know what you mean. Sometimes they do try to get a little too cute. Like Cory said though, sometimes that's just kind of the offense. It's an offense that, you're gonna try to get one over on the defense sometimes to create those explosive plays. And I think a big difference between what we saw with Andy and what we've seen with previous offensive coordinators is in previous offensive coordinators, if we didn't have a ton of playmakers or a ton of explosive players, it just wouldn't be explosive. And we would just try to get around it. Where Kotelnicki just kind of tries to make it work with what he's got. The old trying to make chicken salad out of chicken poop, and he's very good at that.
We haven't heard that expression in a while.
But sometimes I think he might try to make the filet mignon out of chicken poop, and it doesn't really work like that. I will say this though, even the 3rd and 1 that everybody and myself, including myself, hated. If Drew threw that if he threw that faster, Tyler Warren was open. It was probably going to be a touchdown. I mean, I'm just saying. I still think we should have ran the ball. But if it works, everybody will just be like, Andy's in his bag. Man, this is great.
Yeah.
But it didn't work, and Andy's an idiot. And
yeah,
it's just kind of one of those things. But I think in that situation, you just run the ball and keep burning clock because they were not going to stop us. So, yeah, he gets a little too in his bag sometimes, and it's fair criticism.
And then, you know what? I thought, I looked at the Arizona State game, and they were just giving the ball to Scattaboo, like right up the gut, and they weren't being creative at all, and they weren't having much success doing that either for a large portion of that game. So,
it wasn't really till the halfback pass where they got a little cute, as the kids say.
Right. So, that's the nature of play calling. I'm not.
In other news, I think Penn State basketball is about to beat Northwestern.
Are they out? So it was 75-75. Now they're up 79-75.
It's 82-78.
Oh, okay.
Yep, with 49 seconds left, and looks like we're going to the free throw line. So I think we should. Well, I don't want to say it's over, but I feel like we're sitting pretty right now.
All right. Well, I actually have one more question.
Oh, no, Northwestern's going to the free throw line. Never mind.
Oh boy. Just jinx that whole thing. This question is from Dion. I think this is the first time question asker here. Coming in hot. Omari Evans or Tyseer Denmark for wide receiver 3 next season. I've been Omari truther for a better part of 2 seasons now, but Denmark really intrigues me. Curious to see what you think about it. I would understand this question maybe a couple weeks ago. But Omari Evans just caught a touchdown pass and had another really nice catch, which is nice to see him and have a catch that wasn't a touchdown. I think you could argue Big Dome Drew really likes Big Dome Omari Evans. So to answer this question straight up, I just feel like it's a spring question. But again, I will just say Omari Evans is ahead of Tyseer Denmark. And he is producing. I don't see Omari Evans right now being behind him. Also, I don't understand why we're talking about 3. Are you assuming Devontae Ross or Kyron Hudson are immediately going to be 1 and 2 or 2 and 3? Or I don't. I feel like you don't have anything. You got a bunch of tied for ones when you go into next year. So, figure it out. But no, I like Tyseer Denmark. Don't get me wrong. But Amari Evans is doing some good things right now. And if Penn State were to win a national championship, it's probably because Amari Evans has a touchdown in the Notre Dame game and a touchdown in the Ohio State game.
I hate to talk like this because we'll get certain people mad at us, but are we sure they're all going to be here next year?
I don't
know. But assuming they're both here, I think there's more upside with Tyseer Denmark, honestly. There's one thing with Omari Evans. He's definitely a deep threat guy. But is he just Penn State's version of NFL John Ross? I mean, I think
John Ross is still good in college.
John Ross was good in college. I'm talking about NFL John Ross. Where John Ross just ran vertical, and then you're like, well, what else could he do? And he's like, you know, I will say he had an impressive catch along the sideline.
I'm going to defend your honor, Amari Evans. Maybe it's because I thought you were going to be the breakout player 2 years ago and it didn't happen, but I am not losing faith in Amari Evans, especially given the nice touchdown snag he just had last week. I'm going to defend him.
He's good, but I just worry that, you know, it's like, what else have I seen from him? Like, if it's 3rd and 10, and we need this first down against Notre Dame, are we looking at Omari Evans? I don't think so. I think he's probably like 3rd or 4th guy that we're looking at.
But he's not. But that's not who he is. Like, he's not going to ever be a possession receiver.
No, I just want to.
I do.
Oh
think,
no.
Okay,
missed. Northwestern's going to. What the hell happened?
You mess that up for us?
No, I think Northwestern's going to the free throw line to tie the game with 5 seconds left.
That's not good either. We did have one more question. This cannot become a habit for you. This was, I got to find who posted this. It was Einstein von Braun. But he asked a question pretty late. And because we like Einstein von Braun, we let it slide. So last question here from Einstein. It's the second time he's done this now, by the way. So fool me once, you know how it goes. He says, over the last 3 games, at least one major component of the team has had an off day. Winning 2. Defense, Oregon had the off day. Drew versus SMU, weather attributed. Play calling, Boise State. What unit can we most afford to have an off day next week and win? Or do we finally get a complete game on all fronts? I only answer this question because it's a fantastic question. So, Sean, if Penn State were to have something that was off against Notre Dame and they could still win, what would it be?
Is special teams included?
Yeah.
Special teams. Because and the only reason,
after watching the kick return, I'm not as confident about that.
The only reason I say that is, like, people think, and James Franklin himself probably disagrees with me on this. I don't think special teams is as important as offense and defense, because you're on the field a lot less for special teams than you are on offense or defense. So if you're only on the field for like 20 plays on special teams, and like 3 or 4 of those plays just don't go well, you could make up for it on offense or defense. So almost every game I would answer special teams.
Yeah, I'm going to say...
Maybe that's a cop-out.
I think I'm going to say the pass defense. I think the pass defense can afford to be leaky at times, and Penn State will still have a chance to win the game. I'm not saying that they can just, give up Tez Johnson numbers all of a sudden. But if they have a couple pass interferences, whatever, again, it's going to be... If I'm a Penn State defensive back next week, I am not letting the guy catch the football. I will take the 15-yard penalty and see if Notre Dame can continuously move the ball down the field. I am not going to give up a big play. and I'm going to let them methodically move the ball down the field and see if they can actually get it in the end zone. So I think you can give up a big play or two as long as you can keep them out of the end zone. They're going to get theirs at some point. Faison's a good receiver in his own right, but I think you can give up a couple and still afford to win. I think you have to stop the run to win. You got to stop Riley Leonard in the running game to win. And I don't think you can afford to give up anything on offense to beat Notre Dame's very good defense. So I would say if I had to choose something, which I think this is a really fun question, I would probably say you can afford some slack in the pass defense, especially if you can make up for it with a turnover or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of old-fashioned Big Ten, even though Notre Dame's too good for the Big Ten football. Whoever's best up front is going to win this game. And I tend to agree with you. If I had to pick offense or defense, it would probably be pass defense. And it's not that I don't think Riley Leonard's a good quarterback. I think he is, but their bread and butter is the run game. So if you give up a couple, let a couple go, as long as you're able to tighten up in the red zone, I think you're happy.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Good question there from Einstein von Braun. We talked about Notre Dame a decent amount during all of the show today. We'll be back next week to talk about it more. Sean, do you just want to kind of give go ahead? You're about to break. Did the Penn State win, by the way?
It's 82-82. I think they just waved off of goaltending, though. I can't tell, though, because we're recording. And there's 6.7 seconds yet left. So you want the elevator pitch?
Yeah, give me the elevator pitch for Penn State Notre Dame.
All right. I mean, two traditional powers, right? This was a fun rivalry before either of us were born. And that rivalry has continued in my little neck of the woods here in Scranton, PA, where about half the people that are sports fans are Penn State fans, are Penn State fans. Another 40% are Notre Dame fans, and then 10% are like annoying Ohio State or Michigan fans that are just trying to be different. And Penn State's going to, it looks like, overtime. So it's going to be a fun matchup. And I think both teams are very, very even. I think when you look at the trenches, that's going to be where the game is won or lost. And they have two talented running backs like Penn State does that balance each other out. And they have a power back and they have a speed back, just like Penn State. And I think both teams are a little bit beat up, but not super beat up. Like I said, Notre Dame's going to be without their best pass rusher.
Their best corner got hurt way earlier in the year.
Yeah, so it's going to be so both teams are a tad beat up. But when you look at mirror programs, it's really Penn State, Notre Dame. So I think that's one of the things that's really exciting is which team is going to take that step forward. Which team is going to go to the national championship and have a chance to bring a national championship home. Notre Dame hasn't done that since 1988. Penn State hasn't done it since 1986. So it's going to be really, really fun, especially in my neck of the woods.
That's right. It's a battle.
We just better not frickin' lose. Because I can't stand listening to these Irish Catholics, of which I am one. Irish Catholic myself. And they make me feel like I'm the devil for liking the Penn State Nittany Lions, and I am not. I am a good Catholic. Damn it.
I think that was a really good elevator pitch. I'm really excited about this game. I'm going to be heading down there on Wednesday, and I will be able to see that game in person. So really excited about that. I've never been to the Orange Bowl before. We haven't been there since the 2006 Orange Bowl, which, by the way, was kind of like the reason I really obviously watched Penn State football beforehand, but that 06 Orange Bowl was, and that season in general was kind of like the first really season for me where I was like, holy shit, this is fantastic. So going back there, kind of playing a pseudo ACC team, if you will. So no Bobby Bowden or Joe Paterno in this one. But I will also say that with Marcus Freeman and James Franklin, they obviously are both black, and therefore there will be a black head coach in the national championship for the first time in college football. An African American has never won. As a head coach, has never won a national championship in college football. We talked about that, Sean, texting. That is something that James Franklin has brought up before. And it's kind of funny because, like, there's more and more African American head coaches. It's going to happen at some point. James Franklin kind of got a little bit of a head start compared to a lot. I mean, he's been a head coach now, what, I don't know, 15 years since we include Vanderbilt. So he's been a head coach a lot longer than, say, I would, a lot of the amount of African American head coaches we have now. If he wants to be the first one, I mean, obviously he could lose that opportunity by just losing to Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame would have to still beat Ohio State, but he's not going to have that many more opportunities, just given the amount of African American head coaches that are coming in, and how many opportunities do you really have to play in the semifinals? So a big game for James Franklin in that sense to make some history that I know is important to him. And I do think, and I would really want James Franklin to get that, because I do think it's important to him, and I think it means a lot to him. And he's got to be able to beat Marcus Freeman to do so.
Yeah, and you're both students of history, so it's a pretty cool thing. To be the first person to do anything is really, really cool, and this is James Franklin's chance to do it. And like I said, Franklin has talked about this as well publicly. So, cool historical context there, both for the programs and then what this means for Marcus Freeman and James Franklin, and really what the steps that especially African Americans have taken to be head coaches in college football, because for a long time people just wouldn't hire them. So a lot of history, a lot of good storylines coming into this game.
I'm sure ESPN are probably going to beat it to death, and it's not going to be as cool. But
right now, for sure, cool. that's for sure. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. And then, I mean, think about the national championship possibilities. Like 4 historic programs have a chance to win it. Ohio State, Texas, like an Ohio State, Penn State rematch would be cool. Ohio State, Notre Dame, they have a history. Texas, Notre Dame, Texas, Penn State. I mean, these are, you can't go wrong with any of these combinations for the title game. And I think the playoff committee, or whoever makes money off this thing, they are that Scarface video where Tony Montana's calling his guy, and you just see the money machine just whirring back, and they are just laughing all the way to the bank. That's what the playoff committee is right now.
Yeah, and Texas, Ohio State have had some really good games as well. I'll leave you with this, Sean. The 4 teams, the highest ranked teams for adjusted expected points added, which again is a number of points added or lost on any given play versus the expected number of points that most teams would score or give up on that drive. So it's basically how well your team is doing per play based and compared to everybody else. The top 4 teams now, after the game today: Ohio State at plus 0.40, Notre Dame at plus 0.35, Penn State at plus 0.33, and Texas at plus 0.33. So the 4 best teams left all finished top 4 in adjusted expected points added. So a little bit deep in the data there, but theoretically the best 4 teams made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good Big J journalism right there. What do you think happens in the Ohio State game?
I think I think Texas is the worst out of the 4 teams. So
I do too.
I really thought Texas was going to be better this year, and they just haven't been able to put it all together. So I think Ohio State wins. I don't want to say it's going to be a butt whooping, but there's butt whooping potential.
It's probably going to be a better game than people think. I know they're only. I think I saw one sportsbook had them as 6-point favorites. I think another one had them as 4.5-point favorites. I think they'll cover, but I think most people are expecting, an Oregon style blowout, and I think Ohio State will beat them convincingly. But usually going into a game like this where everybody's expecting the blowout and they're both good teams, the blowout usually doesn't happen. So I could definitely see a world where Texas plays its best ball. But God, Texas came about this close to losing to Arizona State. And you hear the term too, they deserve to lose. I mean, I always kind of think that's a little misleading, because I always kind of think the team that wins deserve to win because of the fact that they won the game. But Texas gave them every opportunity to win, and Arizona State just didn't have quite enough horses to do it up front.
We'll see what happens. We will be back, Sean. I don't know.
And Penn State won, by the way.
I say they won. Yeah, 84-80.
Yep.
Big win. 2-1 in the conference. We will be back. I don't know if Monday or Tuesday is better for you.
Whichever. I prefer Tuesday just because I go in the office Monday, but
okay, let's do Tuesday night. We'll be back with our Notre Dame preview.
All right, let's do it.
That's Sean Kane. I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Appreciate everyone tuned in on YouTube. Make sure to like the video there. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, please make sure you're subscribed there as well. We really appreciate all the support this season. And guess what, Sean? Penn State is not done playing yet another game, and we get to preview it. We'll be back on Tuesday for Hardcore Penn State Football.